Leon Marchand is swimming's new phenom that's taking the world by storm. And if you haven't already heard of him, it's time to start paying attention. Representing France at this summer's Paris Olympic Games, all eyes will be on Marchand, the home country hero, to take the jump in his swimming career to Olympic glory. Having already torn up the NCAA system, breaking records in the 200 and 400 IM, 200 breaststroke, and 200 and 500 freestyle, he's a wealth of knowledge to be studied. But last summer, Marchand took down Michael Phelps' last and arguably hardest world record, the 400 IM. But not only did he break the record, he absolutely shattered it, taking over a second off the previous record, all while the GOAT sat in the stands cheering him on. Coached by Bob Bowman, Phelps' longtime coach, Leon Marchand is looking to take the world by storm this summer and cement his name in Olympic history and become a household name. In this video, we're going to break down everything about Marchand's stroke and break it into 7 categories: starts and turns, underwaters, butterfly, backstroke, breaststroke, and freestyle, and something special I like to call the X Factor. Make sure to stick around until the end though. I'm going to give you guys 3 tips using Leon Marchand's stroke to help elevate your game and take your swimming to the next level. This is episode 2 of Stroke by Stroke, and without further ado, let's get into Leon Marchand's starts and turns. When looking at Leon's start, he begins with a very arched back, which is something that most coaches will tell you not to do. You want to have a very flat, 45-degree angled back on your start. However, when the official says take your mark, Marchand flattens out his back a little bit, all while he starts to lean back, almost as if he's winding up to begin his start. Again, this is the exact same thing that we saw Michael Phelps do in the previous episode. You start to lean back, and oftentimes, if you're moving at the start, officials will call you on it. But like Phelps, he's Leon Marchand, and they're not going to call him on it. Despite his less than ideal back position, Marchand uses a lot of power off the blocks, beginning with his head to throw his body forward, ensuring that he gets into one straight streamline, ensuring that his hands and his feet enter through the same hole, thus creating the least amount of drag possible. When looking at Leon's turns, he does a really good job of bringing his feet to his chest as soon as he hits that wall and dropping his left elbow and coming completely on his side at 90 degrees. Another important thing that Marchand does is he allows himself to bring his knees to his chest on his turn, creating a super tight ball, ensuring that he gets over really fast and really efficiently. This is super important in the short course yards format, and it only helps him accelerate his speed in the long course meters version of the race. Even when he's already a body length ahead at the backstroke going to breaststroke leg of the 400 IM, he ensures that he has a tight ball on his turn, reaches and allows his arm to power him over, flipping his legs over and tucking them close, ensuring that he's not wasting any drag getting into that breaststroke pullout of his 400 IM. Again, really sharp with the turns, keeping those knees close to his chest. Overall, Leon Marchand has some room to improve on his starts, but his turns more than make up for it, and it's just really impressive to watch. Any swimmer who's looking to improve their turns or looking to ensure, hey, how do I get at that tight ball faster? Watch Leon Marchand. Looking at Leon Marchand's underwaters, this is where he begins to excel from some of the other traditional mid-distance swimmers, as he treats underwaters like he's a sprinter. This is an everyday focus for him, and you can tell he's world class at this. First off, he's got hyper flexible ankles, making sure that he gets the most power out of each one of his dolphin kicks. In addition, he keeps a really strong streamline with his upper body. While he does undulate a little bit with his hands in rhythm with his kick, the rest of his upper body is stagnant, which I actually think is a really good job. Some swimmers like Caleb Dressel will use a lot of their upper body in their underwaters, but maybe again, going back to Marchand's start, maybe he isn't as flexible with his upper body, and thus I think this is the perfect underwater technique for Marchand, not moving his body as much. When looking specifically at his kick, he does a really good job of keeping an even undulation with his dolphin kick. He's not just kicking from the knees down, he's making it from the hips down and making this a full lower body motion. Even throughout the course of his 400 IM world record, he continued to push 15 meters off of almost every single wall, and you can tell he knows this is a strength of his. All swimmers across the globe should be doing this. Underwaters isn't just a focus for short course yards, it's a focus for long course meters as well. And you can tell that this is a daily thing for Leon. It's not I practice it for 15 minutes one time a week. This is a daily thing. Every single wall he pushes off of, you can tell he's practicing 15 meters at practice. While many view Leon Marchand as a world-class IMer, it starts with his butterfly, and he's world-class in the butterfly in his own right. And that's why he won the 200 butterfly at the World Championships last summer, going a 152. That's absolutely insane. His fly stroke reminds me a lot of Phelps as he keeps his head really far up throughout a majority of his stroke and just gets it down at the last second to ensure that he has a perfect streamline. I think he even holds it a little bit longer than Phelps does. Despite this, he manages to make sure that he doesn't rise and fall too much in the water as he gets his head back into the right position before continuing into the power phase of his stroke. Something important to note on his butterfly, though, is that he has his hands come outwards. Yeah, his hands are facing like this, instead of traditionally coming over the top with like cupped arms like this. I think that's super interesting. We'll probably see a lot more butterflyers over the years do it, as I think it's probably a little bit more efficient as far as energy management goes, especially throughout the course of a 400 IM. Overall, it's easy to see why Leon is a world-class butterflyer, and I'm really excited to see what he does this summer in the 200 fly and see how close he can get to Phelps's mark from back in the day. Looking at Leon's backstroke, many would call this a weakness for him, but then again, he goes a 44 short course yards, 100 backstroke. I mean, come on. Where is this guy's weaknesses? The first thing I notice is that he does a really good job with rotation, making sure his kicks are even on both sides to make sure he's rotating and getting the most out of each stroke. However, I think he might be overreaching just a little bit. And what I mean by that is he's coming a little bit past vertical on his backstroke pull. This over time will cause injuries for him. I know I got plenty from doing it. So making sure that Leon can get his backstroke maybe just a little bit wider in the long term, I think will be of benefit to him. What I mean by that power phase is that you really don't start to catch water until you get to about 2 o'clock over here. With Leon starting all the way up here at 12, there's this wasted space right here that he's just having to move his arm through. And over time, again, it's going to cause shoulder injuries. But if you really start to move your arms a little bit wider and have the proper rotation and arm placement, he can get into that catch of his stroke a whole lot faster. Additionally, in that 400 IM, he was swimming next to Carson Foster, who is a world-class backstroker in his own right, and so it's easy to compare the differences in their two backstrokes. One thing I did notice about Marchand's backstroke is that he really kept his head really high, which caused him to bob up and down. I think simply moving his head angle backwards a little bit more will allow him to get the most power out of his kick and not cause this rise and fall of his backstroke that we sometimes see. Again, I'm nitpicking Marchand here. He's a great backstroker, but I think there's some room to be improved definitely. And over time, I think you're going to continue to see him improve that backstroke, and that's going to be critical in making sure he gets to under sub 4 minutes in that 400 IM. When analyzing Leon's breaststroke, I looked to find things to fix, but I just really couldn't find anything. So I'm going to tell you exactly how this guy went 146 in the 200-yard breaststroke while looking like he was doing it with no effort at all. It all starts with Leon's tempo, making sure that he's getting the most out of every single kick, not gliding for too long, and starting that next stroke right before he feels himself start to slow down in the glide phase. That perfect timing combined with his really strong pull, which starts at shoulder width apart and comes all the way back almost to his armpits, ensures that he's getting the most out of every single one of his pulls as well. It's super interesting to watch, and I think he does a really good job of making sure that he's not sweeping too wide, but coming narrow enough to get the most out of his stroke. And in the recovery part of his stroke, where he's shooting his hands back up to the top, this is where he does a really perfect job of kicking in that strong kick and ensuring that he's getting the most out of his glide. And right before, again, he feels like he's starting to lose momentum, he begins to initiate that next breaststroke pull. Lastly, his ankle flexibility is unmatched. I don't know if I've ever seen a swimmer get their feet to almost horizontal with the water and push back like that in the breaststroke. It's almost unmatched, and this is where he really gets a lot of his propulsion from that glide phase of his breaststroke. All swimmers need to take a page out of Leon's book on ankle flexibility. Whatever stretches this guy's doing, we all need to learn from it. And the last of the IM strokes, but certainly not the least, the freestyle. Despite Leon going a 128 200-yard freestyle and a 40-point 100-yard freestyle, I found this video out there of Bob Bowman talking about how freestyle is Marchand's biggest area of opportunity. Bowman noted that when Marchand begins to kick a lot in his freestyle, he stops rotating, causing his right side to pull a little bit less than his left side does. Again, this is very nitpicky right here, but that is definitely an area of opportunity. And you can see Marchand, when he starts to kick, start to flatten out his body a lot more and not rotate. So definitely something we should all think about when doing freestyle, especially at the end of a 400 IM. While I wasn't able to find a super good angle of that catch, you definitely can see that Leon starts to flatten up, and he definitely does start to ramp up his legs at the end of that 400 IM using a 6-beat kick, which is almost unheard of at the end of a 400 IM. Now, some of you guys were confused about what I meant by a 6-beat kick or an 8-beat kick in last week's video with Michael Phelps and Ryan Lochte. Simply, what a 6-beat kick is that you have 6 freestyle flutter kicks for every 1 cycle, meaning 1 right stroke and 1 left stroke of freestyle. So 6 kicks per 1 cycle. Now, according to online, Leon stands at 6'2", and while this is really tall, it's not that tall for sprinters. So for this reason, I see Leon coming and using his arms really close to the water and not coming out of the water as much as traditional sprinters or freestylers do. Now, I think this plays really well to Leon's body type, and I think this is exactly what he should be doing. Last but not least, Leon does a really good job of getting his head from the breath back into his stroke. Well, while he does breathe a little bit behind himself, especially coming off the turns, I'm sorry, we're all guilty of it, you too, Leon, he does a really good job of getting that head back in line before that next arm comes over. So I think he's doing a really good job of that. But again, he does breathe a little bit behind vertical. So something to work on, something to think about, and something for all swimmers to consider when doing their freestyle. And when it comes to the X factor, Leon Marchand has got it. He's proven that he's definitely a relay threat, being the 3rd fastest performer all time in the 100-yard freestyle and going a 49 in the 100-yard breaststroke on that ASU relay. So he's definitely a relay threat for France this summer. But most importantly, he's got a wild range, all the way from the 50 breaststroke up to the 500 freestyle. His versatility alone gives him a check for the X factor for me. But again, going back to his relay threat, that's where I seriously start to say Marchand does have the X factor. Now, will France use him in the 4x1 freestyle relay this summer? That remains to be seen. I think they're silly if they don't, but then again, France has a lot of good 100 freestylers. I just think if people are saying that you have the next Michael Phelps on your team, you'd be an idiot to not use him on your relay, right? So with all that said, Leon definitely gets my stamp of approval on the X factor. Now that we've broken down Leon Marchand's stroke, here's 3 tips that you can take away and implement into your own swimming. Tip number 1, have a strong rotation. Even Leon's coach, Bob Bowman, says that this is something that they both are working on actively, so I assume that for all of us, there's a lot of room to improve on our rotation. Having a strong rotation on both backstroke and freestyle ensures that you're not overreaching, you have good hand placement, and thus you're getting into the power phase of your stroke faster than your competitor. Tip number 2, practice underwaters daily. Many swimmers think, oh, I'm not a sprinter, I don't need to practice my underwaters. Wrong. Even Leon Marchand at the end of a 400 IM or a 500 freestyle is pushing 15 meters off every wall. That's absolutely insane, and it's something that we should all be taking note of. Underwaters are important, not just in short course yards, but they're important in long course meters as well. If you need some additional tips, I've linked my video with Ryan Hoffer. He's a world-class underwater expert, and he's got a lot of tips and a lot of stretches that you guys can do to put it into action. Tip number 3 is use your glide, but don't abuse it. Many swimmers with a really strong breaststroke kick will tend to extend their glide phase of the breaststroke, some even doing it a bit too long. While Leon has an insane kick propulsion, he makes sure that he doesn't glide for too long. He's got his timing so down to a T that even before he feels himself lose momentum, he's already started that next breaststroke pull. Get to know your breaststroke kick and pull and make sure that you guys don't lose any momentum on that kick and glide. It's going to be absolutely critical to improving your breaststroke. Now that you learn these tips, the only question that remains is how many Olympic medals is Leon Marchand going to win in Paris? I mean, seriously, this guy's on fire. Comment down below what you guys think Leon's medal count's going to be this summer, and let me know who you guys want to see a stroke analysis of next. And last but not least, if you guys want to improve your H2O IQ this summer, Make sure to like and subscribe to this video. We got a whole lot more swimming content coming this summer. And without further ado, I'll see you guys all next week.